So now I want to add in that mouth movement, and when the player passes the edge of the canvas, we want to reset that player value. So I can add all of that within here. So I'm going to do, let's quickly beautify that a little bit. Then here I'm going to do if player X is greater than or equal to, and I'm going to do canvas width. I'm going to do canvas width minus 32. So that even though as soon as he's pretty much touching the edge there, I can flip him back over into the 0 position. So I can set up player X and give him a value of 0. And sometimes with these values you do have to play around a little bit with it. So this one, so once y, if it goes canvas height minus 32, we're going to set y at 0. And then the next two, so I'm going to check actually if player X is now less than 0. So keep in mind that you want you don't want to set it equal to 0 because I'm setting player X at 0 over here, and if I'm looking for it to be less than or equal to 0, then when it hits 0 over here, I'm going to get a conflict over here. So you got to really make sure that you're not overlapping your values. So that's why it's always good to make sure that you do check those over. So now I'm going to set a value of player X, and I'm going to give him a value of canvas width minus 32. And same thing for Y, canvas height minus 32. And then lastly, what I want to do, so we'll just show you how this works, and then we'll set the mouth, which is actually something that I wanted to do because that's going to add some nice functionality. But see that we do have this working now, and now to set up our opening and closing mouth. So I think that this is a pretty neat part of it. And it's going to be really easy to do because it's all contained within that one image. So don't actually have to be flipping images over. So if this value is 320, we're going to do something, and if it's not 320, then we're just going to set it to 320. So if it's not 320, I'm going to set it to 352. And here I'm just going to do an else. And here I'm going to set it to 320 so that the next time around it does hit that value there. And it resets it over to 352. So now just to kind of go over this, how this is going to work. So every time the key gets pressed, every time the Pac-Man moves, it's going to flip through the two options here for where the mouth is going to be located. It's going to move this image needle, the selection area, from 320 point to 352, and this is where we've got the mouths that are open. And again, this is where it works really, really well with these types of PNGs, where you just load the whole thing in, and then you can just move between the different spots using JavaScript in order to select all those different spots. So now we got to test it out, make sure that it's working, and see there we've got our mouth opening and closing, up and down, and everything seems to be looking the way that we need it to work. And of course, you could always slow down that movement if you had multiple positions of the mouth. You could slow that down have different things happening and so on. If you've got a character that's walking, you can add in all the different points there in order to make the movement look natural. And that's one of the reasons why I really like Pac-Man, because it's very straightforward. You don't have a lot of moving parts. You have an opening and closing mouth, which makes it really easy to render that out. So in the next lesson, we're going to get into some additional stuff where we're rendering out we're actually doing some animation. We're going to add in the power dot, and then we're going to start adding in some enemies to turn it into a more interesting game.